DaviePHD's Mythbusters, Episode 2, 30th of July 2020. Many things are said about various issues surrounding Scotland, the UK, the EU, independence, money, etc. In these videos, I'm going to bust the myths that many people believe. This week's myth is that rejoining the EU would mean that we just transfer control from Westminster to Brussels. So what is to be gained by leaving the UK and joining the EU? Leaving one union to gain independence just to join another one initially doesn't sound very sensible. It would be kind of like getting married, feeling unhappy, reaching an agreement, getting a divorce, and then getting remarried again the very next day. But leaving the UK and joining the EU would in truth leave us with more control and more opportunity than we have now. The impression that the EU took away UK's sovereignty and control was very successfully promoted as the reason for the UK to leave. And there is some truth in that. The UK ceded about 10% of control to the EU during its time as a member. But Scotland currently cedes about 60% of our sovereignty to Westminster, and the 40% we do have is under threat from Conservative manoeuvrings currently going on. In truth, the issue of the UK giving up sovereignty or control to the EU is a bit of a red herring. You see, every time a government does a deal with another government, whether it's trade, security, military presence, border controls, every single deal results in a loss of sovereignty or control. Because that's what deal making is. In an equitable deal, no one gets everything they want, but both sides get something acceptable. Instead of now just doing that once with the European Union, we now face the other 190 plus nations of the world, all taking little nibbles of our sovereignty with each individual deal done. There were many things not to like about the EU. Many of the larger, more prosperous nations felt it benefited the smaller, poorer ones more. There is some truth in that. We all benefited from membership, but the level playing field meant that the UK and other larger nations sometimes got proportionally less benefit than others. But an independent Scotland wouldn't be a big large nation propping up the EU. It's going to be a small one, being assisted. Though the UK admittedly ceded control to the EU, we would, on Scottish Independence Day, initially gain back the 60% we ceded to Westminster, taking us back to our full rightful 100%. And then, if we chose to join the EU, we would then cede the same 10% everyone else does. This would leave us in a position of having 90% control as opposed to the current 40%. The EU is a financial union, and though it's tough to join, members can leave any time they want to. The fact is, only one nation state ever chose to do so, and the wisdom of that decision is still in question. The UK is a political union. Though it was not entered by conquest and by the standards of 1707, it was a choice made freely. It wouldn't stand up to modern democratic scrutiny. We're also constantly told that it is the most successful political union in the world. But I feel that really depends on which country in the union you live in. While city traders working the square mile would undoubtedly agree, I think if you'd have a real challenge convincing Scots former shipyard or steel workers or coal miners that this was a sustainable success in any way. And if it is such a success, if the union is so precious to us Scots, why would they be so scared to test it? The UK is in fact bleeding Scotland dry. If we'd been independent in the 1970s, we could be Norway rich today. If we'd voted for independence in 2014, we could have had less of the UK national debt to pay and be in a stronger position to negotiate EU entry if that's what our people wanted. And whilst the UK had all of our control, they mismanaged our natural mineral wealth and simultaneously decimated Scottish industries and communities. 63 countries have left British control. In a lot of cases, their independence was benevolently granted only after the British Empire had asset stripped said countries of anything worth having. Now, does that sound familiar to anyone? Interestingly, some of those British colonies are now fighting back. I'm not suggesting they're coming to invade us and colonise, but in the modern battlefield of commerce, they are fighting back and winning. A large Indian company, Tata, now owns British Steel and Jaguar Land Rover, both once proud British titans of industry, except that Tata are closing UK steelworks and have started to move Jaguar Land Rover production from the UK to the EU. So I hear many of you ask, why rejoin the EU at all? Why not just keep all 100% of our sovereignty? Well, as I see it, there are two main reasons that 10% is a price worth paying. Number one, it would re-establish frictionless trade with the largest trading bloc in the world. Tariff-free access, along with freedom of movement, etc., all of which were of a benefit to Scotland, even if their benefit to the rest of the UK was debatable. And number two, it would be no benefit at all for the UK to make a Scots-UK trade and border control deal difficult, as they need the oil, gas, water, hydroelectricity, etc. that they currently get for free. While it may not be as free as it is now, it would be in the best interest of both nations to make it as free as possible. So we would need a free trade agreement with our UK, and they would need one with us. Scotland could be unique within the EU, as having a land border and free trade agreement with our UK. In the past, EU companies would open facilities anywhere they wanted within the EU, but in order to take advantage of a Scots or UK free trade agreement, they would have to open a Scottish-owned subsidiary. In simple terms, Scotland would become very attractive for direct investment to any company from the EU or even farther afield looking for as free a trade as possible with our UK. Now, the UK may have ceded 10% of our control to the EU, but they rarely exercise that 10%. We're often told that courts like the European Courts of Justice or Human Rights were unneeded external interference in our affairs, but they only ever became involved when all UK avenues were exhausted. In other words, if we'd managed to sort these things out ourselves, they would have quite happily sat back and let us do it. There's no reason to believe that they would interfere any more with Scottish judicial decisions as they did with the UK. As with one of the oldest legal systems in the world, most Western systems are based on Scots law anyway, including UK. Now, Wales and England voted to leave the EU. It would be a democratic outrage if Scotland and Northern Ireland prevented them from getting their wish. But the same is true in reverse. If we truly are nations, and not merely regions, then we should have a choice about which union is most important to us. Northern Ireland will have to choose their own way to ask that question. Ours is IndyRef2. The unique position described earlier, an independent nation in the EU with a land border and free trade agreement with the RUK, would be massively beneficial, but it is available to another country, Wales. Logistically speaking, for mainland UK, it would be better if it were us. Politically speaking, Wales is currently further away from independence than we are. But in my view, that only hastens the need for Scottish independence. Once we start making this argument, it will win Welsh hearts and minds too. And if they gain their independence first, we miss out massively. I was perhaps being too kind when I suggested that former British colonies were benevolently granted their independence from British rule. Whilst it is true that no country has ever asked to return to British rule, and that some had to fight for their freedom, others were malevolently cast aside once they'd been exploited for their mineral wealth. The fact that our UK so desperately wants to hang on to Scotland indicates to me that they still deem us of value, and their decades of deindustrialisation are akin to the asset stripping of natural resources in the days of empire. Make no mistake, we are Britain's last colony. We have to fight for Scotland, whilst we still have something of value worth fighting for. We have the potential of a stunningly bright future. That unique place in between Europe and our UK, it's inviting us. We just have to reach out and grab it. I opened this video with an analogy of leaving an unhappy marriage. only to get married again the very next day. But that's how others see it. How it's been successfully cast by those who are anti-independence and anti-Europe. It would be more like leaving an unhappy marriage, reflecting for a wee while, starting to date, maybe even getting a boyfriend or girlfriend. But all the while, keeping your future options very much open. Folks, thanks for watching. Please comment on the Facebook page. Keep it civil at all times. DaviePHD.